Morning, all. All right, we're going to talk about the 2014-2015 season. Again, four divisions on the board: Metro, Atlantic, Central, Pacific. Some changes from where they were for the 2013-2014 season. So the New York Rangers win the Metro division, and they finished first overall. Record of 53-22-7. 248 goals scored, 187 goals against, 113 points overall. Now, the 2015 draft, I almost said 2013, 2015 draft, caught myself. It was a very deep, strong draft. So I wanted to have a draft pick from each team on the board. The most noteworthy for the Rangers, Alexei Sorella, drafted 89th overall. They did not have a great 2015 draft. Washington, 45-26-11 record, 101 points, 237 goals scored, 199 goals against. Jonas Siegenthaler, drafted 57th that year by Washington. The New York Islanders, 47-28-7 record, so 101 points for them, 245 goals scored, 224 goals against. Matthew Barzal, drafted 16th overall that season. Pittsburgh, 43-27-12 record, 98 points, 217 goals scored, 204 goals against. Daniel Sprong, drafted 46th overall by Pittsburgh. Just below the playoff line with 89 points, the Columbus Blue Jackets, 42-35-5 record, 227 goals scored, 248 goals against. They drafted Zach Werenski, 8th overall that season. The Philadelphia Flyers, 33-31-18 record, 84 points, 212 goals scored, 223 goals against. Travis Konechny, drafted 24th overall that season by Philadelphia. The New Jersey Devils, 32-36-14 record, 78 points, 176 goals scored, 209 goals against. Pavel Zacha was drafted 6th overall that season. The Carolina Hurricanes, 30-41-11 record, 71 points, 183 goals scored, 219 goals against. And they drafted Sebastian Aho, 35th overall. So Carolina, things are rough right now, but we're not far away from Carolina getting a heck of a lot better. In the Atlantic, Montreal, the top team, 109 points, 50-22-10 record, 214 goals scored, 184 goals against. Noah Juleson, drafted 26th overall that year by Montreal. Tampa Bay, 50-24-8 record, 108 points, 259 goals scored, 206 goals against. Anthony Cirelli, drafted 72nd overall that year. The Detroit Red Wings, 43-25-14 record, 100 points, 231 goals scored, 211 goals against. Evgeny Svechnikov, drafted 19th overall that year by Detroit. The Ottawa Senators, 43-26-13 record, 99 points, 232 goals scored, 208 goals against. Thomas Chabot, drafted 18th overall that season. The Boston Bruins just below the playoff line with 96 points, record of 41-27-14, 209 goals scored, 201 goals against. That draft was bewildering, but they did get Jake DeBrusk at 14th overall. I'm not sure why they took the other draft picks in that first round. They did, but, it's one of those things. Florida, 38-29-15 record, 91 points, 198 goals scored, 213 goals against. They draft Lawson Krause, 11th overall. The Toronto Maple Leafs, 40-44-8 record, 68 points, 206 goals scored, 257 goals against. And Mitch Marner was drafted 4th overall that season by Toronto. The Buffalo Sabres, 23-51-8 record, 54 points, 153 goals scored, so anemic offense there. 269 goals against, and Jack Eichel was drafted 2nd overall that year by Buffalo. So Buffalo finishes last in the league, but they don't win the draft lottery. There's a team in the West that wins the draft lottery, and they get a pretty big start first overall. But starting with the Central now in the West, 109 points for St. Louis, 51-24-7 record, 239 goals scored, 197 goals against. Vince Dunn, drafted 56th overall that year by St. Louis. Nashville, they finished 47-25-10, 104 points, 226 goals scored, 202 goals against. And Alexander Carrier, drafted 115th overall by Nashville that year. Chicago, 48-28-6 record, 102 points, 220 goals scored, 186 goals against. Dennis Gilbert, drafted 91st overall by Chicago. The Minnesota Wild, 46-28-8 record, so 100 points for them. And this is where we're getting into way too many teams getting 100 points. Doesn't really have a meaning now. 227 goals scored, 198 goals against. They draft Kirill Kaprizov, 135th overall that year. Kind of a steal. Winnipeg, 43-26-13 record, 99 points, 223 goals scored, 204 goals against. Kyle Connor, drafted 17th overall by Winnipeg. I kind of expected Boston to take him as well as Barzal, and they skipped both. Dallas just below the playoff line, 92 points, record of 41, 31, and 10, 257 goals scored, and 257 goals against. Rope Hintz drafted 49th overall by Dallas. Like I said, this was a stacked draft. The Colorado Avalanche, 39, 31, and 12 record, 90 points, 209 goals scored, 223 goals against. Mikko Rantanen drafted 10th overall. And Colorado, 9 points out of the playoffs. We know things will get better for Colorado soon enough. The Pacific Division is won by Anaheim, 109 points for them, a record of 51, 24, and 7, 228 goals scored, 221 goals against. So a surprising goal differential that it's not better than that. Troy Terry was drafted 148th overall by Anaheim that year. Vancouver finishes 48, 29, and 5, 101 points, 236 goals scored, 220 goals against. I felt like they got better because John Tortorella was out, and there was kind of a bounce back after that. Brock Besser was drafted 23rd overall by Vancouver that season. Calgary, 45, 30, and 7 record, 97 points, 237 goals scored, 213 goals against, and they draft Rasmus Andersson, 53rd overall that season. LA just below the playoff line. They win the Stanley Cup in 2014, missed the playoffs in 2015. Record of 40, 27, and 15, 95 points, 218 goals scored, 197 goals against. Matt Roy drafted 194th overall that year, so he just signed a huge deal with the Washington Capitals. He was a late draft pick. The San Jose Sharks, 40, 33, and 9 record, so 89 points, 224 goals scored, 226 goals against. They draft Timo Meier, 9th overall that season. Edmonton, 24, 44, and 14 record, 193 goals scored, 276 goals against, 62 points. And Edmonton's actually not even the second from the bottom, so they win the draft lottery. They get Connor McDavid, and the rest is kind of history, right? He's drafted first overall. Arizona finishes 24, 50, and 8 on the season, 56 points, 165 goals scored, 267 goals against. They drafted Dylan Strome, 3rd overall that season. So for the Arizona Coyotes, passing on Mitch Marner, I mean, they're in Utah now, so it's all fine. So this is where they added the dry scrape. To start the season, the GMs decided they'd put the dry scrape before overtime in the regular season, and it just took too long. So it only lasts a few weeks, and they take it out. They're like, nope, this is taking too long. We don't like it. So out it goes. The Coyotes officially changed their name from the Phoenix Coyotes to the Arizona Coyotes. They're playing out of Glendale, so that makes some sense. On April 11th, on the final day of the NHL season, all 30 teams are in action, 15-game day. I'm kind of surprised the NHL doesn't do that more often, to be honest. July 1st of 2014, Ryan Miller signs with the Vancouver Canucks. Honestly, he was a good goaltender for Vancouver. He did quite well, even on some bad Vancouver teams. January 14th of 2015, the Coyotes trade Devin Dubnyk to the Wild for a 2015 third-round pick. Dubnyk turned things around in Phoenix, and that was after, in Arizona, and that was after Edmonton had given up on him. So Dubnyk goes to Minnesota, has a pretty good run after that. January 29th of 2015, the Hawks trade Adam Clendenning to the Vancouver Canucks for Gustav Forsling. Forsling, of course, ends up in Florida and has a pretty good career going for himself. He was a Vancouver Canucks draft pick. Yes, Canucks fans were not happy at the time that trade took place. February 11th of 2015, the Sabres trade Tyler Myers, Drew Stafford, Yoel Armia, Brendan Lemieux, and a 2015 first-round pick to the Jets for Evander Kane, Zach Bogosian, and I believe it's Jason Kasdorf. So this is a trade that it feels like kind of favors both teams. Both teams get what they want out of it. But, of course, Evander Kane in Buffalo, he ends up out of Buffalo and moving around a little bit. And for Tyler Myers, he ends up in Vancouver, but he had some good times in Winnipeg, too. February 28th of 2015, the Coyotes trade Antoine Vermette to the Hawks for Klas Dahlbeck and a 2015 first. So I do believe this is the season that Patrick Kane is on LTIR. They pick up Vermette because they have cap space with the LTIR money. And then Kane's okay come playoff time, and the Chicago Blackhawks, as you can see, have some success in the postseason. So what people get mad at Vegas and Tampa for doing, Chicago was the trailblazer on this years before that. April 24th of 2015, the Oilers hire Peter Chiarelli as their general manager, a move which it had some positives along the way. The Leon Draisaitl contract ends up being a bargain, but there were definitely some drawbacks there too. May 20th of 2015, the Leafs hire Mike Babcock as their new head coach. They gave him a ton of money to come over to Toronto, and in the end, there was some success, but not enough success really to justify the paycheck they gave Babcock. The Art Ross that year goes to Jamie Benn of the Dallas Stars as scoring plummets this season. This is where the NHL, I think, realizes we've got a scoring problem. The Masterton goes to Devin Dubnyk of the Minnesota Wild. The Calder goes to Aaron Ekblad of the Florida Panthers. The Conn Smythe goes to Duncan Keith of the Chicago Blackhawks. The Selke goes to Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins. The Hart Trophy goes to Carey Price of Montreal, who had himself an amazing season. The Jack Adams goes to Bob Hartley of Calgary. The Norris Trophy goes to Erik Karlsson of the Ottawa Senators. The King Clancy goes to Henrik Zetterberg of the Detroit Red Wings. The Lady Byng goes to Yuri Hudler of the Calgary Flames. The Ted Lindsay goes to Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens. So he wins the Lindsay, he wins the Hart. He's the best player in the league that year. The Rocket Richard goes to Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. GM of the Year goes to Steve Yzerman in Tampa Bay. So again, Steve Yzerman, GM of the Year. Someday I think he'll get there with Detroit. I know people will laugh at me for saying it. The Vezina Trophy goes to Carey Price of Montreal because of course it does. He's the MVP. He's the best player in the league. He's got to be the goaltender who gets that trophy. And then he shares the Jennings Trophy because that's the kind of guy he is. He shares the Jennings with Corey Crawford of the Chicago Blackhawks. For Montreal and Chicago, they have the best goals against average in the league that year. Your league all-stars, John Tavares is the first team all-star for the New York Islanders. Sidney Crosby of Pittsburgh's second team. On the left side, Alex Ovechkin of Washington's first team. Jamie Benn of Dallas' second team. On the right side, Voracek for Philadelphia, first team, and Tarasenko in St. Louis, second team. On the blue line, PK Subban of Montreal and Erik Karlsson of Ottawa are your first team all-stars. Shea Weber in Nashville and Drew Doughty in LA are second team all-stars. In net, Carey Price for Montreal is your first team all-star, and Devin Dubnyk for Minnesota, second team all-star. So again, Jamie Benn's the leading scorer. 82 games, 35 goals, 52 assists, 87 points. So, yeah. John Tavares of the New York Islanders, 82 games as well, 38 goals, 48 assists, 86 points. Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh, 77 games, 28 goals, 56 assists, 84 points. So if he'd played the other 5 games, he very likely ends up winning the Art Ross. Ovechkin, 81 games, 53 goals, 28 assists, 81 points. He's still not passing a lot. Voracek in Philly, 82 games, 22 goals, 59 assists, 81 points. Nick Backstrom in Washington, 82 games, 18 goals, 60 assists for 78 points. Tyler Seguin in Dallas, 71 games, 37 goals, 40 assists, 77 points. Yuri Hudler had himself quite the season with Calgary. 78 games, 31 goals, 45 assists, 76 points. Daniel Sedin in Vancouver, 82 games, 20 goals, 56 assists, 76 points. So a bit of a bounce back for the Sedins that year from a rough season under Tortorella, but their scoring would drop off again after that. Tarasenko finishes 10th on the scoring list, 77 games, 37 goals, 36 assists for 73 points. Again, when 73 points gets you in the top 10, scoring is down. In net, Carey Price leads the way in wins for Montreal, 44-16-6 record, .933 save percentage, 9 shutouts. Braden Holtby in Washington, 41-20-10 record, .923 save percentage, 9 shutouts. This is right around the time where I looked at Holtby and I looked at the Caps and thought, if the Caps can stay as a winning team and if Holtby can play 60-plus games every year, maybe he gets enough wins to at least challenge Brodeur at some point. Nope, wasn't going to happen. Pekka Rinne in Nashville, 41-17-6 record, .923 save percentage, 4 shutouts. Ben Bishop in Tampa, 40-13-5 record, .916 save percentage, also 4 shutouts. So we get to the playoffs, and in the first round, Washington knocks out the Islanders 4-3. The New York Rangers beat Pittsburgh 4-1. The Tampa Bay Lightning beat Detroit 4-3. And Montreal beats Ottawa 4-2. So Ottawa unable to secure the upset that year. On the western side of things, Calgary beats Vancouver 4-2. Anaheim sweeps Winnipeg. They're a relatively close series, but still a sweep. Chicago beats Nashville 4-2, and Minnesota beats St. Louis also 4-2. In the second round, Tampa Bay beats Montreal. It takes 6 games, as there's no sweep on either side this time. New York, the Rangers beat Pittsburgh 4-3. Anaheim beats Calgary 4-1, and Chicago beats Minnesota 4 straight. This was also the era where Anaheim owned Calgary. In the conference finals, Tampa Bay and the New York Rangers go at it. The Rangers win the first game 2-1. Tampa Bay answers with a 6-2 win. Then they go home and they win 6-5 in overtime. The Rangers answer with a 5-1 win to tie the series. Tampa Bay then wins 2-0 in New York. New York goes into Tampa and wins 7-3. So ridiculous playoffs. And then Tampa Bay wins 2-0 to win the series in 7 games and qualify for the final. The other Western Conference final, Anaheim wins the first game 4-1 over Chicago. Then in triple overtime, Chicago beats Anaheim 3-2. Anaheim beats Chicago 2-1, and then Chicago beats Anaheim in double overtime 5-4. Anaheim beats Chicago in overtime 5-4. So close series here. Chicago answers with a win as well, 5-2, and then Chicago wins 5-3. So they were down 3-2. They win the next 2. They win the series in 7 games. And it's Chicago and Tampa Bay. And again, as I've said many times when I've talked about this playoff run, these were some of the most entertaining playoffs I've watched. And that Stanley Cup final was fantastic. Chicago beats Tampa Bay 2-1 in the first game. Tampa answers with a 4-3 win. Tampa then goes into Chicago and wins 3-2. So they're up 2-1. That's where the happiness ends for Tampa. Chicago wins 2-1 at home. Then they go into Tampa. They win 2-1. And then they win at home 2-0. So in that series, Chicago wins the Stanley Cup 4-2 against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Teravainen, the leading scorer for Chicago in the final, 2 goals and 2 assists. Marian Hossa, 4 assists for him as he gets another cup ring. Saad, 2 goals and an assist for 3 points in that final. And Corey Crawford, a .938 save percentage for him. And of course, the Conn Smythe going to Darren Keith. Ryan Callahan led the way for Tampa with a goal and 3 assists. Victor Hedman had 4 assists. Nikita Kucherov had a goal and 2 assists in that final. Bishop had a .924 save percentage. Vasilevsky got into a couple of games, had a .917 save percentage. So Vasilevsky about to take that leap as Ben Bishop's body was going to fail him pretty quickly after this. But that's a discussion for another time. So there you go. The 2014-2015 NHL season, as we are less than 10 videos away from this series being done. Thank you guys so much for those who have been watching these videos. I really enjoy putting together the history videos, to be honest. They might be some of my favorite videos to do. And so, yeah, hopefully as the years go by, these videos continue to generate some views. But thank you guys so much for all your support. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.